was going to share a story. This is well, some years ago, I used to know a woman who, she told me about an ex-boyfriend of hers. Apparently he was a hot thing. Great relationship. She was very happy, except they had rows. And she told me that one of the issues, very important issue, obviously, and I hate to sound a bit patronising in that tone, but just wait till you hear it. One of the issues was that he wouldn't use a coaster. And she had a French polished coffee table. Now, if you put a wet mug down on the French polished coffee table, it leaves a white ring. Big problem. She told me this, he wouldn't use a coaster. And I just looked and said, varnish it. And she was really offended. Why should I have to do that? I said, because he's never going to care. Because he's a man, you see. And I mean, the kind of man who'd care about a French polished coffee table is not the kind of man who's going to, between the sheets. I mean, really. I would have thought that was pretty obvious. Anyway, at the time that I knew her, she'd moved to a village, and she had got herself involved with a local solicitor. Tall, slim, good looking, own house, sports car, very nice. And she told me after a bit that one of the issues she had with him was that because she was very fashionable, she was bothered by how unfashionable his hairstyle was. And she wanted him to get his hair cut differently. And then, of course, it was all about his clothes, because they weren't fashionable enough either. Because he was your typical sort of country casuals, chinos and, jumpers, that kind of thing. And my reaction was to say, he's not your dolly to dress up. He's his own man. Let him make his own choices. One weekend, they very kindly invited me to go to lunch with them. And I went over there. And I almost feel bad saying this, because I don't actually condone the behaviour I'm about to tell you about. But anyway, I was in his house. I'd just been shown around downstairs and admired the lovely kitchen and looked at the garden through the window, and very nice. And he went upstairs and he came down with 2 jumpers and said, which one should I wear? And like a shot, I sort of jumped in between them and said, which one do you want to wear? Are you a man or a mouse? There is no doubt that most men will wear the clothes you buy them. Most men don't really care what they wear. And if you want to cut his hair, he probably doesn't care about that either. But the idea that somehow he is less than because he's not exactly your ideal man shows that you have swallowed a lie so big, so huge, that somehow there is an ideal man, and somehow there is, that there's always a better guy. No, there isn't. The grass is not greener. If you get rid of the one you're with now, will you find a better one? Do you think a better one has been thrown away by somebody else? Probably not. Maybe a better fit for you. Maybe more broken this time round. Maybe too broken this time round. So while you're busy looking at your man and criticising him for all of the minutiae that annoys you, consider that it's the minutiae and it's you that's annoyed. And that he doesn't care, and he never will. He will never care about your French polished coffee table. And a man who cares about your French polished coffee table is very unlikely to be a, shall we say, a partner that you want to spend time with. If you're, you know, a woman who likes men. I mean, do I have to spell it out? I hope not. Another story. Someone I know whose husband, well, apparently everything he does is wrong. And remarkably, the only time that his wife doesn't complain about how he does everything wrong is when she's got something else to complain about. Because unfortunately, through a series of events, and I'm not going to go into that, but she was under an awful lot of pressure for an awful long time. I think she's just got into the habit of complaining. So if it's not one thing, it's another. She just can't help it. It's just completely ingrained that there's always got to be something to complain about. Her poor husband, I mean, he's a nice guy. He's, you know, ran his own business and, you know, now he's retired. He's paying for everything. His pension is paying for their daughter to have a horse, and you know, he's funding all of this. But apparently he can still do nothing right. Doesn't matter what he does, he's criticised for it. If he drinks, he's in the wrong. He cooks the meals, but that's wrong too. Doesn't matter what he says, it's wrong. And I actually felt like asking her one time, although I didn't do it. I wanted to ask her to write a list of all the things that her husband had full and complete autonomy in, the things that he gets to do just for him, that he wants to do. Because there would be just one thing on that list, just one. And that was his exercise regimen. Absolutely everything else seemed to be controlled in some way or another. And that, of course, is to weaken the man. It is to undermine him. And it is to control him. We actually have laws in Britain about coercive control. And she would fall foul of that if he made a complaint, because just the endless controlling behaviour. Constant criticism. Constant fault finding. I mean, it's just draining for anyone to go through that. That is what so many men endure in their marriages. And right down to screaming, yelling matches with family, with his daughter. Mother always takes the daughter's side, daughter always takes the mother's side. There's no balance. No one takes his side. No one takes his side. Except I used to. Interestingly, she used to ask me to talk to him sometimes. You know, we've got a problem. You should talk to him. Okay, I'll talk to him. And I'd stand there and he'd tell me about it. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. Because I just couldn't actually be on her side when I know full well that his views are actually generally quite reasonable. And it's one of those things that I see it again and again and again. I do recall saying to her once, you do know that, name deleted, is the head of the household, don't you? And she just went, Pah! In my face. She was like, well, okay, hang on a minute. What I couldn't say at the time was, if he's not the head of the household, who is? Because that's not a woman's role. This woman who's so stressed, not her role to be in charge of everything. She's made herself a handbag and she's carrying it. This is one of the things women do, and it's a cultural thing, is to undermine men to the point that the woman can no longer respect them. And the most attractive men Don't collude with that. It has nothing to do with physicality, nothing to do with good looks. It is just a certain something that a man should have, that he has some self-respect and doesn't allow himself to be pushed around. Not by his wife, not by his kids, not by anybody. It is not an attractive trait in women to push your husband around. And yet it has become the norm in Britain. And as I say, I've seen it again and again and again. So that's enough kind of stream of consciousness for one night. Part 5. Goodness gracious me. Too many parts, too much video, but just really want to get these thoughts out. Because I feel so strongly that if men and women do not set aside the cultural lies of the synagogue of Satan, if we do not push away the cultural evil that has come upon our people for the last, since the Second World War, if we don't push that away and return to what is godly and what is right in the eyes of Yahweh, and if we don't unite men and women together, because there is a very, very special thing that happens when men and women are united. When a man is strengthened by his helpmeet, there is a very special thing. I remember somebody saying to me many years ago that a man and a woman together are stronger than the sum of their parts. Two women cannot do what a man and a woman can do. That's nothing to do with procreation. That is to do with the way a woman thinks and to do with the way a man thinks. To do with a woman's receptivity and wisdom and a man's physical strength and decisiveness. When you combine male and female, godly, God-given male and female traits, male and female roles, when you do that, then you have something that is so much stronger than just putting two people together. If we can get back to that in our love, in our obedience to this amazing God, if we can do that, then there is, I was going to say there is a future. There's a future for us. This world is passing away. And I have to say that the urgency that I feel at this point is immense. Because the time is so very short. We are already seeing the construction of the beast system. And if men and women don't start getting together, setting aside all of the, excuse my language, but the bollocks that we have been fed since the Second World War, if we don't dispose of that and start to unite in the way that Yahweh intended, if we don't do that, then we won't survive. And we are coming into that time of tribulation, and we're going to need each other. Those of us who are obedient to this God that we love, those of us who are prepared to walk in Torah, and those who are not need not apply, because we must make sure that we do not leave room for lawlessness, because lawlessness is where the judgment comes in. Anyway, that's enough of me for one night. Thank you for watching.